Hello, Beverly. How are you? Well, here you go. Thank you. Oh, no kidding. Oh, this is very thoughtful. Thank you, sir.
Really? How are you?
Oh, awesome. See, I didn't get, he said he sent some this morning and I looked when I went home and I didn't get it.
Exactly. Exactly. Hey, how are you?
Good. Thank you.
Good. How are you? Very well. Sit down.
That was so great, Bobby.
Hi, I saw you started in this minute. You find a seat.
Testing 1, 2, 3, 4. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, we're good. So that's for in here. This is for online.
Okay, so whoever speaks has to have both.
Both.
Okay. Well, we can when we clamp them to each other. Oh, that has a magnet on it. Good. Okay, let's put them together because people are going to be. Hold on online. Yeah.
Are you covering up the power button?
No. There you go. It's okay. Okay. Thanks, Bob. Always taking care of stuff.
Move your finger. There we go. I think that's good.
Welcome to you joining us online.
Right up against your mouth.
Welcome to you joining us online. Hey, everybody. Good to see you all. Aloha and welcome. If you haven't got a agenda, Barbara May, are you? Oh,
Beth is
Barbara's looking for who's she?
Beth is looking for Barbara.
Beth is looking for Barbara. Barbara's not here, is she? Okay. Nope, not here. Thank you. Yep. We're going to go ahead and begin. I'm going to ask Brian if you'd come up and offer the prayer. Because we've got folks, aloha everybody, we've got folks that are joining us online. You need to hold this mic pretty close to your chin if you're speaking. And it's got another mic that's put next to it, which is the mic for the folks online. So this one so we can hear, and the other one so they can hear. Brian's going to open us in prayer.
Thank you. My dear friends, my dear friends, let us pray. Dear,
there you go. Hold it right there. There you go.
Dear everlasting, ever loving, ever gracious, ever supporting, ever faithful Father God, thank you for all you've given us. I ask you please to help from our faith. We love our neighbors as ourselves. We love to give you service, and we love ourselves. And I ask that we consider being bold, following Jesus' examples, and providing for this community all we can. We received much from those who went before us. Let us do our best to leave more for those who follow us. Their times are going to be tougher than ours. I love you all. I want to help my neighbors as much as I can, and you can come beat on me all you want. My name is Brian, and dear Holy Jesus, in your name I pray, thankfully. Amen.
I think Jesus knows where to find you. Paul, come on up. Ian, come on up. This is just a delight to be able to bring you up to date to where things are currently. Really hold this close to you, so almost touch your chin with it. Our chair, Tim Bostock. Tim, I know you're joining us online. Had a commitment off island this weekend, and so he's not able to be with us. But we all are empowered with the weeks and months of meetings with the steering committee and also the vestry. So we're all here to bring you up to date. But there may be a question or two that Tim, as chair, may need to answer. So we want to invite your questions. I wanted to make sure that before we begin, if there was anything, sorry, I meant to do this before inviting you up. If there was anything that anybody has on their heart or mind they want to make sure they get asked, let me know now. Does anybody have anything they want to make sure they get asked or answered during this gathering? Anything that's already, I know things are going to come up as we go along, but if you walk in with something you want to make sure that we address. Anybody? Okay. Terry, God bless you. You have been great about making sure every single week there's something about the gathering place to make sure that we're all updated in the parish newsletter and in the insert. We only had one response to the invitation for folks to let us know if they have a question, a hope, or concern in the email that went about this meeting today. So I'm not sure what that meant. I'm taking it that we've worked hard to keep people up to date, so they've got a lot of their answers to their questions already. But my guess is there's going to be questions that arise out of what you're going to hear today. If we don't get to answer all of them right now in the next hour, and we need to be finished absolutely by noon. There's a couple of us who have commitments we need to be off to, so we're going to end right at noon. We'll make sure that those get recorded. Terry's taking the minutes of this gathering so that we'll record those questions if we don't have time to answer them all now and make sure we get them later. So not hearing anything that's on your heart, we're just going to jump straight in then and bring you up to date where things are in this moment. So I'm going to turn it over to Ian, our junior warden, and I'm thrilled to say that Ian is willing to run for junior warden this next year as well. He's got a heavy competition of folks that are running against him. He's actually running solo for this. Ian, we thank you for being willing to do that. Normally, I only prefer our warden to serve for 2 years to give that space to another person, but Ian's is willing to serve one more as this project that he's been helping oversee as junior warden to lead us through it to its next stage. So thank you, Ian. And right up to your chin.
Thanks. Yes, I'm a glutton for punishment. We have. So we're going to split between me and Paul some answers to the question areas that we put forth in the agenda. If you have any specific questions, please feel free to ask. But where we wanted to touch on first, and again, I'll be speaking a lot in Tim's voice because he provided me a lot of the detailed talking points. So if I feel like I'm reading from if it sounds like I'm reading from a script, it's probably because I am. Because he's got access to all, as the chairman, all the latest and greatest. Anyway, the first area we want to touch on is really an update on where we are currently in the project. What is going on exactly? And so I want to have Paul talk about first, kind of formally what's going on in the design phase, the permitting phase, things like that, because there's been a lot happening. As you know, we entered into a contract with Paul last year to kind of take us forward. And a lot of work has been done, and so we want to give you a summary of kind of where we are right now. Paul.
Hey, good morning. So right now we call it the AEC team, the architect, engineers, and consultants. We're all working hard to get all the construction documents done in time to submit for permit whenever that is ready to happen. We're hoping that'll happen probably mid-February. It might go a little bit longer. We're having issues with wastewater treatment plant, the sexy part of the project. So we're going to get that all figured out and get in for permits, like I said, hopefully in February. The permit process with the county, I always advise, let's plan on it taking 6 months. There's been rumors that it's getting better, but we'll believe that when we see it. But during that 6 months time, we'll actually be in contract negotiations with a contractor for their construction contract, and that's going to involve a whole lot of stuff. They're getting all final bids from all the suppliers, all the subcontractors, and material suppliers. And then also a big portion we'll talk about today is we need to come up with a construction logistics plan. How are we going to actually do the construction operations here while keeping as much of the campus open and operating and undisrupted as possible? So that's where we are currently with documents.
Great. And as far as contractors go, we have been engaging with 3 different contractors over the period. When we first got the basic design or concept finalized, we got some preliminary estimates from 3 contractors. Those are Quality Builders, Tingley, and White Sands. All of them provided estimates, and that's where we got the range of the construction costs that we've been using to hit our fundraising goal, or establish the fundraising goal that we need to hit. We got more detailed bids as we got toward the finalization of the design, so that we had a better handle on what's included in the bid, exactly what would be outside of that, what kind of contingencies we needed to add, things like that. And so the result is the preference and recommendation of the steering committee is that we go forward with Tingley. And there are a few reasons for that. One, and the primary one being, well, one, financially they're well within the range of all the others that we've seen so far. But 2, we have, importantly, a history with them since they were the contractor for St. Columba's. And there we had a good experience with respect to how, typically, when you think about, I've got a construction bid, how much should I factor in for contingencies? It always goes up. It really didn't, not a lot got added to the St. Columba's project, and how it got added was through change orders that we approved based on, well, once you start opening up walls, you find things like that. And so we were really happy with their project management. We're assured that we would get the same project manager as we had at St. Columba's. And we feel good that the cost that they've put forward will be very close to the cost that we pay in the end. So that's quite important. Also, the project at St. Columba's was on time, and the subs managed a good job. So that being said, we're not at a point where we can formally enter into a contract because we're still going through the permitting phase. There's a lot more detail that goes into a formal, what we call firm fixed price bid. That is, once they bid, the price is set, and it's up to Tingley to manage that, barring unforeseen things that happen as they open up walls or what have you. So as Paul mentioned, that we'll be negotiating over a period of kind of the next 6 months. Yeah. February to August, yeah. And then at that point, then the the vestry would vote to approve going into contract. Ultimately, the diocese has to agree to it, and they may require us to get 2 more bids. We've had 2, other estimates, so we know that we're in the range, but if they require us to get 2 other formal bids, we will have to go back to contractors and likely pay them to submit bids because it's a lot of detailed work. They don't do that for free. So we'll see how that process runs. We didn't do that, I think, with St. Columba's. We based it off of the estimates.
Yeah, we got at least 3 bids for all the subs.
Yeah,
that
yeah,
sort of stuff, but
yeah.
it was slim pickings for general.
Yes, yeah. So anyway, we'll see how that process goes, but that's just to set expectations. So we're not. It's not a done deal, but Tingley will be the contractor of record for submission of the permits because you have to have one. And that's what they did that for us last time at St. Columba's as well before they had secured an actual contract with us. So anyway, we'll do that again this time.
Is there any questions of that?
Can you tell us what they said the range is?
Yes, that was the next section.
I thought that was under finance.
It is, yeah. So we're going to go into the finance check-in, if you'd like. Basically, we want to talk about two things. One is where are we towards our goal, and then what is the anticipated turnkey cost of the project. So, Paul, would you like to take the cost estimates?
Yeah, so with the 3 estimates from Tingley, White Sands, and Quality, the average of those is about $4.5 million. I always advocate have a contingency on there, and right now I always keep it super high at 15%. So if we ended up using that, right now that's $675,000. The whole soft cost side of this that goes into your final total cost is the architects, engineers, and consultants, and right now under contract there's about $520,000, and maybe a little bit more. Well, there will be a little bit more for we have an A&E consultant and security consultant and a couple small ones. So all told, if all that money ended up being spent, it's $5.7 million. But again, 675 of that is a contingency. Ian had spoke about our experience with Tingley and St. Columba's. By comparison, that project was about $800,000, and the change orders amounted to about $10,000 at the end of it. So it was about 1%, which is phenomenal, and we hope to keep that the same on this. Really, it should be easier because it's a ground up, all brand new building instead of adding on to an existing. The biggest scary things are just underground. So once we're out of the ground, things get really easy.
I'm sorry, you didn't answer the question about Tingley.
Yeah.
You've chosen Tingley at the moment, and I heard you say the average was this of the 3.
Yep.
But would you please tell us what Tingley's bid was?
So Quality came in at about 4.2, and my reading of their bid is they're probably a little low. White Sands is going to be about 4. I'm sorry, did I say 4.2 for Quality?
Yeah.
White Sands about 4.7. They're always a little higher. They're a union contractor for one thing, and Tingley's actually was at 4.54. So they're right in the middle. Yep.
Great. Yeah, and as far as the unknowns go, there are a couple of big unknowns. One mainly being the septic. One because there's a question right now whether we'll have to have a formal wastewater treatment plant because of the size of this. We don't think we should, and that would add pretty substantially to the costs.
$150,000.
150,000 plus you have to run it. You have to operate it after that, and it's not a. You actually need to staff that because it's a non-trivial thing.
Paul, can I ask the question of what percentage do you think we're actually going to need that? If you were guessing
At this point, I think it's pretty much a given that we're going to need to. Working with the civil engineer and finally getting the numbers in line for the amount of wastewater generated by the building. Plus, we're going to go ahead and tie in the office building. We're going to abandon that cesspool. So once you add all that in, we thought we were going to be right near the threshold, but we're going to be well over that threshold. At the end of the day, long-term thoughts, it's a much better solution, the full wastewater treatment plant, better for the environment. It will just be an operations issue from here on out, though.
And it goes underground, right? So
Correct.
It's not another structure out there.
Yeah.
Not visible.
Right.
No, yeah, no. And
I
then,
think it goes under the parking lot. Under where people park, not the parking lot, but where people park.
and then the other externalities say are we're planning on tying in the electrical from the office and the other nearby buildings into the same electrical system as this, so that every one of those buildings can leverage the PV system and battery backup and all of that. We're really, there's some decisions to be made as we get closer in the design, but we really want to ensure that the building has resiliency. As you can imagine, in an extended grid outage, you'd want to be able to operate. One, because we have a large certified kitchen that could provide food for other surrounding areas where, if you're cut off from power, you may not be able to operate kitchen. We have a huge walk-in freezer where we store things. You don't want food spoilage on a massive scale, things like that. So we're really looking towards. I don't know what's causing that. Okay. I'm not wearing a phone either. So anyway, so we want to make sure that as we're doing this building that we do have that kind of resiliency.
Can I do a clarification, just so I don't want anybody to be confused? In tying in the electric, because I think it'd be great if we could do all of our buildings if we could. Our TMK only allows us, and Paul jumped in the end, it only allows us the church, the office, and this building.
Correct.
So that's the only one that we tie, and that's still huge. But this property is divided up into 2 or 3 different TMKs, 3 different TMKs. So this one, you can't evidently cross over TMKs.
Yeah, so we can't tie in the rental properties and things like that because they're on different TMKs. Hans?
I think this just answered my question. The multiple TMKs means that we're talking about wastewater treatment for church, gathering place, office, but not for the school.
Right.
Correct.
And they already have their own new.
Yes.
Yeah, can you say a word about that?
The school's already converted their cesspool to a septic, and the church actually has already converted that cesspool to a septic. So church is fine, but this new building will handle its own needs along with the office.
Okay. So let's now talk about if there are no other questions on that, let's talk about the fundraising goal. We had set the fundraising goal at $5.5 million, and that allows a 10% contingency, not 15%. As we said, we had good experience with Tingley the previous time, but there were additional costs outside of the Tingley construction that we came to learn in the process of it, including I think about $40,000 in electrical that was outside of that. So you always have to plan for those kinds of things. Right now, for total donations and pledges, we are at $3.65 million, which is amazing. We are applying for a number of grants. And I've got a whole list of them. If you're interested in them, I can rattle them off. But okay, all right. So one, there's a First Hawaiian Bank Foundation that we've already requested $100,000 from. There's a Bank of Hawaii Foundation that we've submitted requesting $75,000. There is an upcoming deadline this coming Friday, Tim, for the state GIA/CIP, and the target is $250,000 from that. Tim has met with David Tarnas, or is meeting with David Tarnas early this coming week about that. There's Dorrance Foundation, $50,000. That has no deadline. You apply. Nelson Foundation's another $50,000 with no deadline. There's another one called Deviance from the Norm, another $50,000 that we're requesting. Richard Smart Foundation, we're looking to get $100,000 from, but we'll submit in January. There's no actual deadline. TC Ching Foundation, $100,000. The deadline is the end of the month. And Yield Giving, it's a Mackenzie Scott Foundation. That is TBD. So that's what we have so far. In addition to that, we have an as yet unknown amount from Tom Robertson's estate. We have he has released $300,000 so far that was in cash accounts, but the sale of the house and some other things, minus the costs associated with that, we don't know the actual amount, but we know that it's substantial. Now, not all of that, and we have to be in sensitivity to Tom's wishes. He specifically did want to fund the second-story apartment on the gathering place, but as things come in and we look at the total, the vestry will need to decide how to allocate funds and stay in accordance with Tom's wishes. But some portion we expect to be able to use for the gathering place. Yes.
Did we decide on building the apartment building?
Yes, that is in that is in the plans. Yep.
And now it's paid for by Tom's
Yes.
estate. Martha?
Yes.
And repeat it.
Oh, let me do some addition in my head. it's
How much? I came up with 750, but very rough.
Yeah, rough 750. That looks good.
Can I speak to that? That's probably about right. You heard all that list of grants that Ian just listed. He didn't list all the other grants that primarily Tim, I know Lori, you've helped, and I know that Virginia Bordeaux, if you're joining us, you've helped. That's a lot of work. But I know you can duplicate. Once you get one grant done, a lot of times you can pull the information and copy it, but sometimes it has to be narrowed in, especially when you're filling it out online. Tim is doing this for the gathering place. He's doing this for the community meal. He and Melanie are running Kamawela Inn, and their rest of their life they've got, which that's a part of their life right there. So if this is something that you enjoy or you know somebody, and particularly those of you joining us on our online congregations and aren't here year-round, but a way to connect, this is a ministry you can do long distance. You don't have to be present. And I know Tim is looking for folks to be able to share in this. And there is going to be a point, and Tim, you're watching, I know you are, we don't want to burn you out, and we're going to burn you out. This is like too much. This is too much. And in that same token of doing some restructuring of the community meal, we need to figure out. So if there's somebody out in the wider community or off island or in the community, please step up. We could use your help. And just try it once and see if it's something that you like. If you're not a people person or don't want to teach Sunday school, this is your ideal job.
Financing. So I said this started out as a dream. When all of you started hearing numbers as large as we're talking, you thought, how can this ever happen? But it's going to happen.
Any other questions about finance? Any other questions about timeline? How about, yep.
I have a question on construction.
Yeah.
Yes.
We've talked about taking some of the mana from this place, some of the spirit that's in the beams.
Take it over to him.
I love.
Say that again so people online can hear you.
We've talked about taking some of the mana from this place, some of the spirit from this place that's infused in these beams over the last 50 years. Can we point to what are we, some of the wood here is great, some of it's not so great. Are we talking about these pieces up here, the rafters? What are we talking about? It'd be good for me just to have that visual.
Paul.
Yeah, so written into the specification and in the detailing and the architectural side, everything you see here that is a heavy timber, so anything bigger than 4 inches in any dimension, all of that will be reused for certain. Some of these larger 2x8s, 2x10s could be reused. But yeah, any of the big stuff is all going to be going back into the building. And in fact, these pilasters are going to show up again, or these posts will show up again as pilasters in the dining room. So they're going to be lining that space on all sides. We're building some storage units for the AA, NA, other community groups that use the space where they can store their stuff. And I've detailed out, we're going to actually use some of the tin panels. We're going to use as much as we can so that when you walk in, you're going to see a lot of this pavilion in the new space.
Thank you. Joe.
I have a funny history question. When this was built by the Rodenhursts for the plant sale, and they called it the Paul Savanac Pavilion, is there going to be some option in the finished building to have like a historical plaque for the names of people who made major contributions?
Historian, that would be great to have that conversation about, because I think we want to. This is not a start. This is a continuation of what's come before, and we're building upon that. I have been pretty adamant that no matter what size gift you give, I think it's the gathering place. So I think going forward, the gifts given going forward, it's going to be named the gathering place rather than the name of whoever gave the largest amount. Somebody giving the widow's mite, giving out of their largest amount is this. Somebody else's large amount can be something else. And so we made the decision, or I have as rector, that we're going to list by alphabetical order those that are donated. I think we've held back from calling it certain names, and I'm pretty adamant about that. If you're going to call it the gathering place, it's the gathering place. But that I think there's an opportunity to have a history wall of how the gathering place came to be, that names how this came into fruition. And does that answer it? Yeah. Okay. Questions also? Anything else about the building? It's got to, I think, it's got to be demolished, so this would be taken apart first. I've hoped that we can go ahead and start that sooner and get this part done, but it kind of all has to happen about the same time.
I just was wondering, yes, you're going to use the things that are worth using.
Try to keep it from the landfill. We'll try to gift it forward to somebody that, yeah.
Easy for them to do what they want.
That's a great idea. I think with that going, Kay, navigating construction. I want to get us to 2 points before, and we're already halftime. Navigating construction so people can get their questions asked, whether it's going to look like while it's going on and what can happen while it's going on. And then also, how's the building going to be used? There is a question about that Tim wants us to ask to make sure that gets your input on, is how you feel about that. Would it be, what does that look like for you? However you envisioned it, and would it be rented out when it's sitting empty? Would it be, so those are some possibilities you want to hear, but let's talk for just a minute about what the campus will look like during construction. Yeah, after and during. Let's do during first.
Okay, yeah, so as I mentioned, during contract negotiations, we're going to come up with a construction logistics plan, put a footprint of exactly where the contractor is going to operate, where they're storing materials, where they're storing equipment, where their people park, all that stuff to try and keep disruption of the campus to a minimum.
And how many trees are they going to take out?
Yeah, unfortunately, we've got a site plan somewhere. There's every place that's designated as a parking area for the county, we're going to have to remove trees. So the majority of them will be these trees right here between this existing pavilion and the church. We've got about an 8-foot, and it's all still going to be the grass paving system, so it's going to still appear as lawn and finish, but no trees. Yeah, yeah. Anywhere else we can plant trees for sure. Some trees here on this end.
The trees you remove, can the wood be used for? I'm married to a sculptor, decoration?
You get creative with it. Yeah, you could do basically anything that's not structural. You could reuse the wood.
You don't waste it, you don't throw that in the rubbish.
And some of the smaller ones, possibly we could look at. It'll be the contractor themselves will do it, but I'll be working with them to develop that. So it's also dust control fencing. I've already let them know. I think we have to have chain link fence around the entire site with locked gates, and we don't want to have any accidents.
Well, is it safe to say this front of the church on this side and right out here will probably be inaccessible during construction?
Correct.
So you all got that in your mind. This side over here right here and back behind here will be used by construction. So we need to think about that for parking for the thrift store, the schools, in that one parking space on the other side of the church.
But we do expect the road to remain, the circular drive to remain accessible in its entirety.
Yeah, the circle drive will be available at all times, as will all the parking north and east of the church. Everything on that side is still, just the swings obviously have to move.
Will the paper bark trees be saved?
Yes, they're staying. Yeah, I don't know if that'll might come down to if the contractor decides it's out. Yeah, so as far as when the traffic flow changes, it's going to be up to the campus as well as the contractor to figure out what's the least disruptive, bringing trucks around.
But at some point it'll have to be like Sweden in the, I think it was, 1970, around there, on the right. It would,
I think any time, and certainly any of these meetings, we probably need to check in. Yeah.
We're not doing a good job with this mic.
Oh, sorry. Find out what's going on. Absolutely. These meetings, these gatherings are always open. That you're not able to be here, just there's a on the parish website, on the gathering place page, there's a place to submit your questions.
Quick question with regard to program that we're already providing, like where's NA and HA?
Yeah.
And those things, is there some, and the meal on Thursdays?
Yeah, it's a good question. So folks that are joining that want to know about what's going to happen to groups that meet in here, we haven't figured it out. I think when we get to that place that we know there's going to be a start date of construction, or we're inching towards that, I think finding places out, I'm just talking groups right now, finding other places on campus or out in the community we'll be doing.
That process.
Day of the week. So there's in that group is another church on the property. It's powerful. So we want to keep that connection and not, and we want to make sure we help our sisters and brothers who have groups that we already meeting. So if we can accommodate it in our spaces, of course we will. If we can't, we'll start putting out the word and trying to help them find space. We were building in the space in that way, and so that was put on pause there. So my kind of fallback on that with St. Columba, what we know from the build at St. Columba's is if we weren't able to do it, I'm trying to get this in my mind so I relax, is I say to myself, okay, it wasn't able to happen at St. Columba's and all was okay. that there was a pause and that they came back stronger afterwards. So that's where I go in my mind when I start to get anxious about thinking, oh no, we have to. And I keep thinking, okay, wait a minute, St. Columba's paused, everything was okay. So that's where I go. But if we can work it out and find a way to keep the community meal going in some form or fashion. An idea is, and we'd have to figure out, and Paul or Ian, you might be able to speak to this better, is putting a tent there on that side of the, over there beside the graveyard on that side. I still haven't in my mind figured out where you're going to park all the cars that come, but we got to figure. A lot of this, I think, of this kind of thing is going to be figuring it out as we go and making choices based on that. I personally don't want to see us go back to drive-through. But I know if we have to, that's what we. But that's, and we all have our personal choices in that. But I think that, if that's what we decide, that's what we'll do. But I love that we're back together, feeding body and soul in this way. But we just may not be able to do it for those 11 months. So we'll figure it out. The idea of trucking meals like we did for those 2 weeks to Mana, thank God for them when we had to do that. That was a huge blessing. I think we did that when we had construction or something going on. But that was a lot to truck over there and have the meal over there. So I don't know. And for parking, I don't know. Maybe we could work something out next door with Annunciation or with Habitat.
Construction's about 11 months then?
Yeah.
13 months, sorry. Okay. Other questions about that? Anything? So construction. Do you want to move us on to, we got about 15 minutes, to talk for a few moments about your thoughts about how the building will be used. We put it out there, but now that it's becoming a reality, one of the questions is, being raised is, should the certified kitchen, be used as, because it means it factors Tim in applying for certain grants. Would it be something that we'd use to rent out? Let's say somebody's got at one of the farmers markets and wants from 1 to 5 in the morning when nobody's in here bake bread for that, or would we rent it out to them if we're allowed to? I'm still trying to figure that out in my mind. If our TMK plus also if we're allowed to do it, maybe we have to your tax status on this TMK. It may be, I know some churches when you do that you have to ask for a suggested donation rather than say we're going to charge this, or we have a suggested donation of this amount. So. I don't know, we've got to explore that part. But if we're allowed to, would it be something that you would be interested in? Sherry?
When St. Columba was...
I'll come to you.
When St. Columba was trying to figure this issue out, we discovered that the diocese does have a preference for non-profits. So other organizations, I don't know the way around that, but I'm sure they would be probably open to it if we had our criteria listed, like we discussed in vestry the other time. And then one other comment I had was that Bishop Bob was very adamant that he wanted St. Columba to be that community. And so pulling in and allowing other organizations to use your space is an excellent way to serve the community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I have a couple notes.
Then Kay.
Just to put it in context, and I pretend I'm Tim right now, although less charming and all that. So approximately 1/3 of the week could be rentals to caterers, market booths, special events, etc. 1/3 is our own programming, so meal, food hub, Kapuna Coffee, after school and youth programs, etc. And then 1/3 are kind of the existing community users. So really we're talking about for these, beyond the groups that already use this space, we're talking about only a couple days a week, something like that.
Yeah, and a point of clarification, we're talking about this question is renting it out. This is not letting other groups or organizations and partner with other. We're talking about someone approaches and says, like to a for-profit. For a for-profit. And I think there's a couple questions that have to be asked, but if they allow it, we are told it could be a significant source of income for the parish. And I think, though, that there's probably things that come along with it in renting out a space and letting someone use a space. Those are different things probably, and the management of that would probably have to be taken in. We just wanted to get a gauge for you, and it sounds like, as I see heads kind of, you're mulling it over. And it probably needs a little more information for you. Are we indeed allowed to do it by the diocese, as Sherry said, and what that would look like? So my guess is, if I'm just gauging this room right now, let's carry this on, and Tim, we'll have a conversation. Let's get it more put down on paper, and then maybe put it out, and just ask you to give your opinion of it. And so we as a parish can decide this together. You can give to the vestry your input on it. How does that sound? Okay, just kind of, I see you kind of mulling it and everything, and not saying no, not saying yes, but needing more information. Okay. Oh, sorry, Kay.
Well, you know, that kitchen over there functions so fabulously with the people who are there working it, and this building that's been, I've been here 54 years, and I can tell you, you don't need to change where the food is cooked. If you have a tent, it'll be there.
Yeah, so I think that for the interim, if we have a tent put up, one of the questions that we have is, will the county allow us? And you remember Merriman's had one up, and they had to take theirs down. Even Manny next door, he had that tent he had for doing cars, and the county had him take that down. So we'd have to see if they would allow it. I think it's a possibility.
They're anti-tent.
County's not anti-tent. We got to get permits, remember? We love you, county. So, yeah. Oh, let's see here. What's the reference?
Yeah, I mean, and regarding the rental side, remember that there are operational costs for this. We will have to have a coordinator for the space, right? If we're going to rent it out, and even if we're not, so managing the groups who are using, who's using which part. It doesn't come for free.
Yeah. Any other questions? Any other things that you can think of? Harry.
On the renting out, that would include things like wedding receptions and things like that.
Yeah, I think that's another side of it to think out. If someone calls and said, may we use your hall for a wedding reception or a funeral, and I think some of those are pastoral calls, but I think for renting it out, that would fall down those kind of lines. And are you using the kitchen in that or not? Right now, somebody calls up and they say, we'd like to use the pavilion for our baby's first luau. We have some guidelines for that, but most of the time we say yes. We'd love to have you on the property. We'd love to share our space with you. But there are things like alcohol. That one right there, that kind of sifts out a lot of folks who are looking for a space, whether or not you are allowed to have alcohol in the space.
And we're not.
The diocese has a very clear alcohol policy, a very clear alcohol policy. It has to be monitored. I mean, there's a whole list. You can go on the diocesan website. So, extra insurance for that.
Yes, but it's not a free-for-all.
Yeah, there's guidelines
there are
that
rules.
go with that.
It's not a beer garden.
Yes.
What other questions or comments or things that you want to make sure we get said? Anything that you want to make sure you guys say, gathering place, steering committee, let me put it on you guys, that you want to make sure that folks knew about or know about, that you can think later, we should have said that.
So we could reiterate the timeline in kind of simple.
Brian's got one.
Okay.
I want to say that we're maybe...
Brian, wait a second.
The steering committee's consultants who are working on this project have done exemplary work. I've first started in construction in 1966, and I've been in design and construction ever since. This is a real deal team. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
And by the way, that includes Brian, who has done exemplary work in mapping out the underground electrical and the existing cesspool and all that, so that we're not going to inadvertently cut into either. Rough terms. So we've got the permits. I'll let you handle this, but I've got the notes. If anything's changed.
Yeah. So yeah, just quick sort of overall timeline. Looking to again finish the construction documents here as soon as they're ready. I'm thinking that's going to be mid-February. Then in for permits for 6 months, So that'll put us into mid-August. Then they could start demolition and mobilize. The demolition will probably only take a couple weeks. And then they start construction on the new building, which is going to take 13 months. So if we're starting construction in August of this year, we're looking at opening for business September of 2026.
So there you have it.
I want to make one mention. Before the building is demolished, we are planning to have one big final plant sale. This building used to house a plant sale every year, and people would come from Hilo and from the other side of the island and bring plants and buy plants. So if you are interested in supplying plants, Susan Ocasio and Laura Williams are the co-chairs. It's going to be sometime May, June, July, somewhere in that time frame. We don't know exactly when. There'll be more details. But that's one big last grand hurrah before the demolition begins.
One of the things I've tried to get in my mind as well is when could we possibly start, and I've been told, and Paul, maybe you speak to this as well, that I know we've got folks, and God bless those who have given and pledged and are a part of why we're at 3.6 million. There's folks that have that seeded this from the beginning and answered the call when it was put out. And so we're at that 3.6 because people have given of their hearts and treasure on all different ways. Some of those have made a pledge, so it's over a 3-year, and certainly for tax reasons, to do that. And some people wrote a lump sum pledge, a lump sum amount, a check, but some have made that in a pledge over 3 years. So some of that money is not in the bank. So that $5.5 million we need to have in the bank before a contractor would break ground. Am I correct on that? And then Terry?
The $4.5 million, which is the hard cost actual construction contract we're anticipating right now, that would need to be in the bank. But as far as contingency, that's your own money to manage, and then the soft costs will already be paid by then.
So, go ahead, Terry.
I think Tim told us the last amount he had that is in the bank right now is right around $2.5 million.
Got it. So that's where we are. That's helpful to know in the bank. So we need about $2 more million in the bank to start construction. Anybody else? Oh, wait 1 second.
Again, when would the actual construction start?
As soon as we have 4.5 in the bank. Huh?
But not before August.
But not before August. So somewhere between August and 4.5 in the bank. So we would really like to start in August. That would be really this August. Other questions, comments? We got just a few minutes left.
So the construction logistics plan, because I know that there's going to be a lot of interest in terms of like the timeline.
Yeah.
So when would the construction logistics plan be made available so that we can then share it with the parish?
What do you mean by this? The construction?
Logistics as to like how things are going to be handled.
So you would like to see in writing what that timeline looks like, a hard copy of it. Can we do that? Like August? If we started in August, let's say we do have 4.5 in the bank, could we put a timeline together that we could put out to the parish of what it would look like, whatever the start date is really?
Yeah, and I think also the actual logistics plan of how the campus is going to operate, that will be determined when we do construction contract negotiations with the contractor, so that'll be sometime middle of this year. I would think May, June, somewhere in there, we'll have that all figured out.
I'm looking at my list.
Yeah.
Anybody else got anything else?
I think we hit a...
It occurs to me if we can have a lovely plant sale in this building. Thank you. If we can have a lovely plant sale, that's great. But how about all of us who have things we'd love to give to be sold and use the money for the new building?
Yep, to the thrift store.
Yeah, that's the thrift store. Anything
So you're talking about putting on a sale. I think you could do that. I think it would be somebody taking that on to do that. All right, talk to me afterwards. You could do a garage sale. You could do a jumbo sale. Part of what happened in this. Yep. Okay. We've got a.
They don't usually sell.
Yeah. Three minutes.
Prayer.
Hmm?
May I close this out?
Oh,
with a
yeah,
prayer?
let me just make sure. Anybody else as we're closing? You guys are great. Yeah, let's just take a breath. I feel like I felt a little anxious coming in because I wanted to make sure we got everything covered, so don't read my tone as anything other than I just want to make sure all your questions got answered, and so I was trying to move it along, but I don't want us not to be. This is huge. This is great. This is beautiful. And thank you, everybody. All the ways in which you're giving of yourselves, giving of your treasure, giving of your hearts. Hans, lastly? Yeah. Actually, stand up. Steering committee, stand up. So, Terry and John and Garrett and Mel and Marcy, they're all members of the steering committee with Ian and Paul is here and Tim, and who else is missing on that? Kay. Who? And Brian. And then you've got vestry members here, so don't hesitate. This is not your last shot. This is one more shot. So ask your questions. Something comes home up tonight, write it down and get it to one of us, and we'll get it to the right person who can answer it for you. Thank you all.
And I think you should announce that we have an annual meeting coming up.
Yeah, so in this space, last Friday, last day of the month, this month, we'll have the annual meeting. We probably won't spend, like we have in the past, much time on the gathering place because we have this opportunity to do this now. We'll highlight it again, but it won't be probably as much as it would have been had we not had this meeting. 5 o'clock. Yeah, and Community Meal Ministry is providing the main, and we'll be provided the sides and desserts and stuff. Brian, would you close us out, brother?
This is an informal prayer. Let's follow the examples of Jesus. Let's love each other. Let's do it. Let's succeed. Let's be gentle. Let's respect each other. Let's be positive all the way around. And this is a really good start as far as I'm concerned. Thank you. And let's pray for the safety of these two young gentlemen as they go visit grandchildren.
My mama had a little mini stroke, and so I'm going to go run and check on her this week. So just pray for my mama and my dad. Linda.